For 25 years, I was exactly who they wanted me to be. I wore the shirts, I said the prayers, and I stayed under the umbrella of protection because I was told the world outside would destroy me. But then I met Maddie. And for the first time in my life, I saw the truth through someone else's eyes, eyes that weren't clouded by fear or control. You've seen the photos, you've seen the leather jacket, the urban life, and the rebel ink on my skin. My father calls it a nightmare. I call it waking up. Maddie didn't just change my style, she changed my soul. She showed me that God is much bigger than a set of rules made by a man in Arkansas. Tonight, I'm not holding anything back. Over the next 70 minutes, I'm taking you inside our secret life from the moment I decided to stop being my father's puppet to the day Maddie and I chose to live our own rebel heart story. This is the side of the Duggar family you were never supposed to see. I'm Jason Duggar, and the good son is gone for good. I remember the exact moment the light went on. I was standing in a world of gray, following a path that was paved for me before I was even born. My life was a series of I, sirs, and checked boxes. But then I met Maddie Grace Jenkins. She wasn't like anyone I had ever known in Arkansas. She had this energy, a vibrant, creative spirit that didn't ask for permission to exist. When we started talking, I realized that my entire blueprint for a godly life was actually just a blueprint for control. Maddie didn't try to change me. She just held up a mirror and asked me if I was happy. I couldn't answer her. That silence was the beginning of the end for the old Jason Duggar. I started to see that the rules I was taught were designed to keep me small, to keep me dependent on my father's approval. Meeting Maddie was the catalyst that made me realize I'd rather be a rebel in my father's eyes than a stranger in my own. We began to dream of a life that included music, art, and real conversations, things that were considered worldly back home. In that moment, the good son died, and the man you see today was born. To understand why I'm standing here in a leather jacket today, you have to understand what it felt like to live under the umbrella of protection. It sounds safe, doesn't it? Like a shield from the storm. But in reality, that umbrella was a cage. Every piece of music I listened to, every person I befriended, and every thought I shared was scrutinized. I grew up in a world where fear was the primary motivator, fear of God, fear of the world, and most of all, fear of my father's disappointment. We were taught that total obedience to our patriarch was the only way to stay safe. But as I got older, I started to feel the weight of it. I saw how it stifled my sisters and how it turned us brothers into clones of a man we were supposed to mimic but never truly knew. The IBLP teachings weren't about faith for me, they were about performance. I was a professional at performing godliness while my heart was actually suffocating. Breaking those rules wasn't an act of hate, it was an act of survival. I had to step out from under that umbrella just to see if I could breathe on my own, and once I felt the sun on my face, I knew I could never go back into the shade. You might see a leather jacket and think it's just a fashion choice, but in Tontatown, it was a declaration of war. Growing up, our style was strictly regulated. Button-downs, polos, and everything modest and uniform. It was meant to project an image of wholesomeness and order. When I started wearing leather, when I started looking like the worldly men my father warned me about, it sent shockwaves through the compound. The jacket represents a shift in my identity. It's a sign that I'm no longer worried about looking like a perfect Duggar. I remember the looks I got the first time I wore it to a family gathering. It wasn't just a piece of clothing, it was a physical barrier between who I was and who they wanted me to be. It symbolizes a ruggedness and independence and a willingness to be seen as the black sheep. My father saw it as a sign of rebellion, and he was right. But it wasn't a rebellion against God. It was a rebellion against a brand that used my image to sell a lie. Our first real date away from the eyes of a chaperone was the most terrifying and exhilarating night of my life. For years, I had been told that a man and a woman couldn't be trusted alone, that unsupervised time led to ruin. But sitting across from Maddie in a vibrant, neon-lit city, I didn't feel like I was in danger. I felt like I was finally alive. We talked for hours about things that were never allowed at the dinner table in Arkansas. We talked about dreams that didn't involve building a quiverful dynasty. We listened to music that had a beat my father would have called demonic, and yet I felt closer to the truth than I ever did in a church pew. That taste of freedom was addictive. I realized that the world wasn't a dark place waiting to devour me. It was a beautiful, complex place that I had been denied for far too long. That night, I made a promise to Maddie and to myself. I would never let anyone else dictate the boundaries of my life again. The most permanent sign of my transformation is the ink on my skin. Getting a tattoo is one of the ultimate taboos in the world I came from. My body was supposed to be a temple, which in my father's eyes meant it had to be a blank canvas for his teachings. When I decided to get Rebel tattooed on my forearm, I knew there was no turning back. It's not just a word, it's a mission statement. To me, being a rebel means having the courage to walk away from a toxic system. Even if it costs you everything, it's a daily reminder that I belong to myself now. Every time I look down at my arm, I remember the fear I had to overcome to get it done. It represents the pain of the past and the strength of my present. My father may see it as a stain, but I see it as a scar from a war I finally won, the war for my own soul. It's bold, it's permanent, and it's the loudest way I can say I am no longer under your control. Maddie didn't just bring a guitar into my life, she brought a whole new rhythm. Growing up, music was limited to hymns and melodies that felt safe and predictable. Anything with a real beat was considered a red flag. But when I watch Maddie play, I see a connection to God that is raw, honest, and creative. She taught me that art isn't something to fear. It's a way to express the parts of ourselves we were taught to bury. Her world is full of color and neon lights, a far cry from the beige walls of the Arkansas compound. She reclaimed my heart by showing me that I didn't have to be a robot to be a good man. Through her music, she gave me a voice I didn't know I had. She encouraged me to listen to my own intuition instead of always waiting for a higher authority to tell me what to think. In Maddie's world, there is room for questions, for laughter, and for genuine joy that doesn't feel forced for the cameras. She showed me that life is meant to be played, not just survived. The day I finally stood my ground with my father is a day I'll never forget. It wasn't a quiet conversation over coffee. It was a collision of two completely different realities. He saw my new lifestyle, the leather jacket, the travel, the independence as a betrayal of everything he spent decades building. To him, my rebel heart wasn't a sign of growth. It was a sign of spiritual failure. He tried to use the old tactics, the guilt, the spiritual authority, the reminders of my duty to the family brand. But for the first time, those words didn't have any power over me. I told him that I was done living a life that was just a performance for his public image. I told him that my faith was between me and God, not me and him. The look of outrage on his face confirmed what I already knew. He didn't want a son. He wanted a soldier. That confrontation was the final snap of the cord. It was the moment I realized that if I wanted to be free, I had to be okay with being his worst nightmare. Let's talk about the photos that set the internet and my family on fire. People saw a topless shot of us and immediately assumed we had completely abandoned our values. But that photo session wasn't about being scandalous for the sake of attention. It was about reclaiming our bodies from the shame-based modesty culture we were raised in. For years, we were taught that our bodies were dangerous, something to be hidden and controlled. That bold photo was an act of artistic freedom. It was a way for us to say that we are no longer ashamed of who we are. Of course, in the Duggar world, showing that much skin is considered a cardinal sin. But to us, it was a celebration of our marriage and our new identity outside of their strict standards. It was our way of stripping away the layers of expectations and showing the world that the rebel in us is real, raw, and here to stay. Leaving the quiet, controlled environment of Town for the energy of the city was a massive culture shock. The big house was isolated, a bubble where the only voices we heard were the ones that agreed with our father. But the city is full of voices, cultures, and neon lights that don't shut off just because it's bedtime. Swapping that compound life for urban living was a necessary part of my deconstruction. In the city, I'm just Jason. I'm not Duggar number 12. I'm not a reality TV character. Maddie and I love the anonymity. We love being able to walk down a street lit with neon and feel like we belong to the world, not just a ministry. The city represents the future, a place where we can build something of our own. My father warned me that the city would change me, and he was right. It gave me a perspective that the big house never could. When you become a rebel in this family, you quickly find out who your real friends are. The sibling dynamic changed overnight. I've found incredible support from sisters like Jill and Jinger who have walked this path before me. They didn't judge the leather jacket or the tattoo. They just gave me a hug and told me they were proud of me for finding my own way. But the silence from some of my brothers was louder than any argument. There were those who were too afraid to be seen with me, worried that my rebellion would rub off on them or get them in trouble with Jim Bob. It felt like a betrayal at first, realizing that loyalty to our father's brand was more important to them than their relationship with me. But I've learned to forgive them. I know the pressure they are under. I know the fear that keeps them silent. I just hope that by living my life out loud, I can show them that there is a world waiting for them to whenever they are ready to step out of the silence. In my family, money was never just about survival. It was about loyalty. If you worked for the family business or stayed on the compound, your paycheck was essentially tied to your obedience. To truly walk away, I knew how to make a clean financial break. I couldn't wear the leather jacket and live the rebel life while still cashing checks signed by Jim Bob Duggar. Reaching independence was one of the hardest things I've ever done. It meant starting from scratch, learning how the real world works, and realizing that I didn't need the Duggar machine to provide for myself or Maddie. I had to prove to my father and to myself that his financial umbrella wasn't the only thing keeping me afloat. Today, when Maddie and I travel or explore the city, we do it on our own terms with our own money. That financial freedom is the backbone of our rebellion. It's what allowed us to stop being characters in a script and start being the owners of our own lives. One of the biggest lies I was told growing up was that if I left the IBLP teachings, I was leaving God. They make you believe that their specific set of rules is the only path to heaven. But once I stepped away, I didn't lose my faith. I finally found it. Rediscovering God away from the chains of a cult-like mindset has been a beautiful, messy journey. I've learned that God isn't a taskmaster waiting for me to slip up so he can punish me. He's a creator who loves the rebel in me just as much as anyone else. My faith now isn't about long lists of don'ts. It's about a relationship that thrives on grace. Maddie and I pray together, we study together, and we find God in the city lights and the music just as much as in a church building. We've traded the legalism for love, and for the first time in my life, I don't feel like I'm performing for an audience of one angry patriarch. My father likes to blame Maddie for my change. In his mind, I was a good son until she came along and led me astray with her music and her city ways. He sees her as the leader of this rebellion, but he's wrong. Maddie didn't lead me anywhere I didn't already want to go. She just gave me the courage to finally start walking. She didn't corrupt me, she empowered me. She was the first person who looked at me and didn't see a Duggar, she saw Jason. Is she influential? Absolutely. Her strength and her refusal to conform inspired me to look at my own life with honest eyes. But this rebellion is mine. I chose the ink, I chose the jacket, and I chose the life. Maddie is my partner, not my corrupter. We are building this new world together. And if that makes her a rebel leader in my father's eyes, then I'm proud to be by her side. Or wedding was a celebration. But behind the scenes, it was a battleground between the old world and the new. There were so many moments that would never have made it to a 19 Kids and Counting special. We made choices that went directly against family tradition, from the music we played to the way we interacted with our guests. I remember the tension in the room. You could see the divide between the siblings who were happy for our freedom and the family elders who were checking their watches and counting the infractions against their modesty standards. We didn't want a branded wedding. We wanted a real one. We chose to focus on our love, not the Duggar image. That day was the first time the public really saw the rebel heart in action, and even though it caused a stir, I wouldn't change a single second of it. It was our day, our way, and the ultimate sign that the old rules no longer apply. Being a public figure in a family like mine means you're always under a microscope. When I started posting about our new life, the urban trips, the modern clothes, the trolls came out in full force. I've been called everything from lost to backslidden. People who have never met me feel entitled to tell me that I'm breaking my mother's heart or shaming my family name. At first it got to me. I felt like I had to defend every choice. But Maddie helped me realize that their judgment isn't about me. It's about their own fear of change. We've learned to block out the noise. We know our truth. And we know that living authentically is more important than pleasing strangers on the internet who want us to stay in a box. Being a stray Duggar is actually a badge of honor to me now. It means I'm moving forward while they're still stuck in the past, fighting for a version of me that no longer exists. I know I'm not the only one who felt the walls closing in. My younger brothers, James, Justin, and even the ones still at home are watching everything Maddie and I do. For the longest time, the only path out of the big house was through a marriage approved by my father, leading to a life exactly like his. But now they see me. They see the rebel ink, the leather jacket, and the fact that I'm still standing, still happy, and still connected to God. I feel a heavy responsibility to them. I want them to know that they don't have to be afraid of their own shadows. When I post a photo of us in the city or share our music, I'm sending a signal to them it's safe out here. Justin has already started his own journey in Texas, and James is finding his own voice through his videography. We are a new generation of Duggar men who are refusing to be clones. I might be the one taking the heat right now as the rebel, but I'm doing it so the path is a little smoother for them when they finally decide to step out into the light. One of the most liberating things Maddie and I have done is travel. Not for a ministry trip or a filmed family vacation, but just for us. Seeing the world without a chaperone or a script has opened my eyes in ways I can't describe. We've walked through cities where no one knows my name, and we've stood on mountains where the only voice I heard was the wind. These trips aren't just about sightseeing, they are about reclaiming my curiosity. In the IBLP, curiosity was seen as a gateway to sin. But with Maddie by my side, curiosity is a gift. We explore different cultures, eat different foods, and talk to people whose lives look nothing like mine. Every mile we travel away from Arkansas is a mile closer to the man I was actually meant to be. We are making memories that belong only to us, and that privacy is a luxury I never thought I'd have. The quiverful mindset is a cornerstone of the Duggar brand, the idea that you should have as many children as humanly possible to build an army for God. Growing up, that was the only future I was allowed to imagine. But Maddie and I are choosing a different path. We believe that family is about quality, not just quantity. We aren't in a rush to fill a quiver. We want to build a life together first, to grow as individuals and as a couple before we bring children into this world. When we do have a family, they won't be raised in a compound or under a set of rigid, fear-based rules. They will be raised to think for themselves, to create art, and to know that their father's love isn't conditional on their obedience to a system. Breaking this mindset is perhaps the biggest rebellion of all in my father's eyes, but to us, it's just common sense and real love. Dad, if you're watching this, I know you're disappointed. I know you see the tattoo, the jacket, and the life I built with Maddie as a personal attack on your legacy. But I need you to understand this isn't about hurting you. It's about saving me. I spent years trying to fit into the box you built. and it nearly destroyed my spirit. The man I am today, the one who loves rock music, city lights, and a woman who challenges him, is a man you don't recognize. And that's okay, because I finally recognized myself. I'm no longer your soldier, and I'm no longer a character in your brand. I've found a faith that doesn't need your umbrella to stay dry. I love you because you're my father, but I can no longer let your fear dictate my future. The good son didn't disappear. He just finally grew up and realized that his soul was never yours to own. So here we are at the end of this story. But for Maddie and me, it's just the beginning. Having a rebel heart isn't about being angry or breaking things for the sake of it. It's about the courage to be authentic in a world that rewards people for being fake. It's about choosing love over legalism every single day. Our life might look like a nightmare to some, but it feels like a dream to us. We are moving forward with our music, our art, and our freedom. To anyone out there who feels trapped by the walls of their upbringing, don't be afraid to be the rebel. The cost of leaving is high, but the cost of staying is your very soul. Thank you for following our journey and for seeing the man behind the Duggar label. I'm Jason Duggar, and my heart is finally truly free. Keep living, keep questioning, and keep your heart rebel.